I will take this time to introduce the next speaker. Well, he has been with Oracle for 26 years, so I think it's safe to say that he knows a little bit about conversation design. Right now, he's the Senior Director of Product Management within Oracle's Digital Assistant Development Team, and he aims for digital conversational excellence in digital assistants, and he has built the Oracle Digital Assistant Center of Excellence team. Quite a feat. They research and develop best practices and the conversational field, and that is exactly what he's here talking about today. Where is that conversational sweet spot, and what efforts and processes lie behind the training, building, maintaining, and testing of NLP digital assistants? Here to talk about the cool stuff that we do and need to engage our customers, please welcome Grant Ronald.
Thank you. I find myself at the furthest point from coffee and the nearest point from lunch, which is a challenge for us all, but we'll try and make it exciting as possible for you. So, what I'm trying to distill in 15 minutes almost is the last 8 years, which is I've probably worked on about 100 or so different conversational projects inside Oracle and with customers. And this is the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of how conversational AI engagements have been. So let's go through and see what some of our challenges have been. And the first problem I've ever seen, or we see quite commonly with engagements with customers, is right at the start of the project, is the use case. We have conversations with the business and say, why are you building a digital assistant? And quite often we get the answer, because our boss told us to. It's new technology, we thought we'd do it. And really, the question I keep asking them is, why are you not building a website? Why are you not building a web app? What is conversational about it? Because quite often you'll see the opening dialogue is, hi, I'm your digital assistant, and then 5 buttons. Click a button, and you click a button, and you click another button. So we have a question about what is the use case that you're trying to implement? Is it really conversational? If it's not, go off and build a website that you've been building for the last 20 years. There are some great use cases. FAQs are a really simple, easy way. What we call WISMO, where is my order, which is a really common one. One of our biggest customers is Costco. And they started off with FAQs and then moved to where's my order. Anything that's kind of a high value as well. In Oracle, our HCM system, there's like booking a holiday. So 120,000 people in Oracle. Probably 30, 40 times a year, they'll be saying, I want to book vacation, or what's my vacation? So those high-value type use cases. We've also got to work with the business and understand what's involved, because we'll talk about training the model, and you get a blank look. We'll talk about conversation design, and you get another blank look. And we talk about how do you measure success, and they'll maybe say the number of users. And that's about it. So we have to talk to the business and educate them. Well, do you understand that this is different and there are a whole bunch of new skills that you might not be aware of? As I say, in Oracle in particular, huge amount of experience in building web and database applications, but conversational is different. Not necessarily more difficult, but it's very different. And the last point I make here is we really have to tell the business what they should want. And again, it comes back to the very common problem we see. We're building a chatbot, marketing have told us to build it, and it's going to start off with, I'm a digital assistant, do you want to speak to a salesperson, ask a question about sales, whatever it might be, and it's menu driven. And we go back and say, well, might be what you think you want, but if you want to go in conversational, you should be doing something different. It's all about educating them, even if they say, this is what the business wants. This is where I think conversational starts to get quite exciting and kind of fun, is we've got to tell them language is tougher than you really think. With a web application, you have X number of fields and X number of buttons, and that controls what you do in the application. With a conversational application, there's literally no interface. You say and do anything, and you have to prepare for that. Classic examples, book a table for 6. This actually happened to me once. I was in the Netherlands, and one of my colleagues said, I booked a table for 3. And I said, that's a bit early for dinner. He said, no, it's the three of us. Okay, right. But as humans, we can make those mistakes as well. This is actually something those connected to in LinkedIn had all question about. Today is Wednesday. If I said the file was updated last Monday, was it 2 days or 9 days ago? How many people say 2 days ago? Okay, 9 days ago? Okay, I'm with you guys. But on LinkedIn, we were about 50-50. I wasn't sure if it was a Scottish education thing. And it's incredible, talking about Scottish education, my wife is English, and she doesn't understand if I say dinner will be the back of 7. Now, for people from Scotland, the back of 7 means just after 7, but that doesn't compute for other people. And maybe those of you English as second language will have the same challenges. So language is really difficult, it's really imprecise, and sometimes the challenge is not that we as humans can't understand it. We humans can explicitly or implicitly understand some things, but we can't say why. For example, this is a line from one of my kids' movies, Secret Life of Pets. I ain't never done nothing to nobody. There's 4 negatives. Now, I can process and understand in a fast-moving cartoon what that means. But if you try to process that with the 4 negatives, it blows your mind. So how does a computer deal with it? This is one where I'm actually working on a medical system at the moment. And one of the features is set a reminder. So the doctor can say, set a reminder to speak to Mrs. Brown tomorrow. And tomorrow will be hell. But if I say, remind me to scan her at 32 weeks, I don't mean set a reminder for 32 weeks' time. I mean 32 weeks in her pregnancy. But of course, your NLU model it's not that smart. There's context hidden in there that means that it's not 32. It's actually might be next week. And I'm bringing it up, but there's not an answer to that, at least not yet. And every rule you code is a brittle point, okay? And we shouldn't be coding language rules, but I have literally, so I might talk about this later, I've actually seen someone in Oracle write a code where, if string contains job, then its job change is the process. Now in Oracle, I checked, there's 14 people with the name job. So if you said, I want to fire Job Miller, it would change his job. You cannot code in those language rules. Surprisingly, and you guys will probably get this, I hope, most of you, working conversation design, some people don't realize that conversation design is actually a thing. I actually had one group I spoke to, and I said, have you got a conversation designer? And they said, we've got a doc person who checks all the grammar and spelling. And that's what they thought conversation design was. At its most entry level, conversation design is things like your consistency, your persona, your tone of voice of your digital assistant. But that is just the surface. There's much more to it than that. It's sitting down with the users and understanding how they speak, what their problems are, where they're looking for solutions, and designing those. Doing things like design workshops, table read-throughs, WAS testing where somebody plays a bot. And it's amazing how, as I've been a developer building a digital assistant, to then seeing what you've implemented being read back and finding out how it stumbles when you get a real human-to-human interaction, somebody playing the bot. Repair paths. We were recently building a digital assistant for integration with Outlook, for scheduling meetings. Now, when you schedule a meeting, I want to schedule a meeting, there's a whole bunch of information. Who do you want to schedule a meeting with? What time? Are they available? Priority? Is it on Zoom? Et cetera, et cetera. You've got to think about how, in that example, what happens if you don't specify someone to have a meeting with? What happens if you specify a name that's a duplicate? If you only give one name? What happens if you try to book a meeting in the past? All these things are the 80% of the effort. The 20% of building a digital assistant that does the right thing is the easy part. And you need someone who's thinking about all those. And one of the decisions we had to make with the meeting planner's digital assistant was, we weren't going to ask you for every piece of information. That gets tiresome. So we had to make assumptions about what fields you had to say and which ones you didn't, and where we made assumptions, like how long a meeting was going to be. Because it gets very needy if the bot keeps asking you for everything. And another important thing the conversational designer do is all the things that we do in conversations that you might not realize that help smooth a human-to-human conversation. Discourse markers. If I was to say to you, firstly, I'd like to do blah, blah, blah. Well, by saying firstly, I'm queuing you up to know that there's a couple of things coming. Or if I say, however, I was thinking about, what I'm saying is I'm acknowledging what you've said, but I think something else. It's kind of like the grease in the wheels of conversation. Other things like implicit conversations and the Max's Grisums of relevance and quality and quantity, those things as well. Now, I put these in because I think it makes me feel quite righteous when I see how bad other people's bots are. Here's one. I'll read it out so you can't see it. Lining someone up for failure. Do you need any help with anything? No, I'm good. Sorry, I didn't understand that. I've seen that so often. Asking a question you're not prepared to answer. This was a really interesting one. Can you show me my pension contributions? And then it gives a button saying employer benefits for your check. So basically, it's pointed you to your payslip. Now, it happens to be that your pension contributions are on your payslip, but you didn't tell me that. I didn't know that's the right answer. It's like walking into this building and saying, where's the cafe? And saying, it's in the building. Okay? Or go into the building. Okay, right. Well, can you be a bit more precise, or can you acknowledge? This one is a disaster. Can I help rescheduling, full stop, but I need the reason spelt wrong. Please select the reason why you need to reschedule. My father died, I'll be tendering his funeral. Great. Let me see what's available. Wonderful. We have some available time slots. Then it gives these numbers, and it's just wrong on every level. And this is another one. Again, this is really simple stuff. When we have conversations where you maybe have buttons, I always say to people, give them a get-out clause, okay? What tax form would you like to see? Your W-4, W-2? None of those. Sorry, I didn't get that. Again, it's really basic stuff. So, having a conversation designer is the person that's not just checking spelling and grammar, it's getting that stuff right. Your NLP models. Now, I'm going to talk about intent, and we've already heard in some presentations, maybe we should be changing our presentations in the light of the announcements about large language models. But for the moment, we're building a lot of stuff with intent. And like databases, like cars, like houses, intents need to be designed. We have to have people thinking about the use cases and how you break those down linguistically. 2 examples of problems I saw in projects. One, they had an intent called manager actions. And manager actions included everything from hiring, firing, pay rises. Linguistically, they were all different. But they designed it that way because they said, well, that's a manager action. I said, well, it may well be, but linguistically, there's no connection. The other one was holidays. And they decided that if somebody asks, what holidays have I had? What holidays have I still to take? We need a past intent for holidays and a future intent, which kind of made sense. But then I said to them, if I said, what holidays did I book already? And I've booked it in the past, but there are holidays to be taken in the future. What intent should that be? They scratched their head. They weren't quite sure. And in the end, I said to them, who's going to complain if you actually say to them, you've had 12 holidays, here's the ones you've taken, here's the holidays you're still to take, and you've got 5 left. Don't kind of avoid the problem. And in the end, that's the way they decided to go. Data. We've seen a couple of presentations already talking about the importance of data and being relevant and clean in something I spend a lot of my time doing, working on the NLP side of things, is trying to help the developers by giving them clean data, relevant. And this brings us a number of challenges. I worked in a project for colon cancer, and we didn't have the customer data, so we went to doctors. This is for patients who are members of the public who could find out symptoms and get appointments. But we went to the clinicians and asked them. But the problem is, the way a clinician would talk about colon cancer, they would use medical terms, whereas me, I would use words like bottom and poop and things like that. Can't use them, believe I'm saying bottom and poop in a presentation. But what was also relevant was we also had to find out if our customers were US or UK, because you wouldn't say bum in the US, but somebody in the UK might say, I've got a problem with my bum. So getting the right data from the right audience for the right bot developer or the right bot user was critical. And not always easy to get that data, but it's something that has to be done. And you'll be amazed how many people don't test. We've got a digital assistant on our documentation page for Oracle Digital Assistant, and we run 500,000 tests every release. Okay? We're able to generate some phrases and stuff, and we test phrases of one intent against others, and we generate over 500,000 tests. I go to some others, and maybe 50, 60 tests, or I just play with it, and it seems to work. Last couple of things, smart strategies. These are just a flavor of one or two things that we try to help with digital assistants. Things like, you don't always have to give a precise answer. Give a broad answer and give multiple links. This is like for FAQ-style bots. Asking for feedback can be really needy, and we spent ages trying to work out a good way of trying to find out. So things like feedback and linking more answers. So we would always use search as a fallback to try and allow people to discover more information themselves as well. And this was actually something for Costco. We had lots of intents for, where's my order, how do I contact the tire center, et cetera, et cetera. And then through the log, somebody said, ordered 4 tires, they didn't all arrive, lost the receipt, had a tire appointment scheduled, now the scheduling timing's messed up. Which intent should that go to? Well, it's very difficult to make it precise. So what we did, we tuned the digital assistant to say a bunch of options. You didn't always have to get the precise answer. We could say, sure, I can help you with that. What thing out of these would you like to do? And the last thing I'll say is we're seeing much more, and I wish I could put a clip of what we're working on now, but it's kind of under the covers, much more multimodal. So some of the stuff you've seen with the screenshots is very much textual based, channels like WhatsApp and these. But we're now moving towards incredibly rich visual, graphical interfaces that are still driven by voice as well. So multimodal for us is becoming a huge thing. I think I managed to get everything in time. It's actually GW, Ronald. I've completely typed my own Twitter handle wrong. But that was just to make sure you're all watching. Have you any questions? I think we're good for time for questions. Q&A.
I think I'll introduce myself. Robert DL, NatWest platform lead. So what does 500,000 tests look like every release?
In terms of what, the passing rates, or?
Overall, so what's that process look like?
So,
what technologies to use? What does the pass look
right.
like?
So what we do is, within our suite, we always do an 80-20 split. Every time we get utterances, we always do an 80-20. 80 to train the model, 20 we keep back for testing. So over time, we build up a bunch of tests for each intent. Then what we do is all the tests that are not for that intent become negative tests for every other intent. So that's how we get this computational or combinational expansion in terms of the number of tests we get. Plus, we also do tests like out-of-domain tests. We'll also do tests that are, for example, use very similar words, but very different meaning, because we don't want the NLP to be keying in just on the keywords. So we have a number of tests within the framework of Oracle Digital Assistant that we can run an automated script. And at the end of that, we get this huge file which we bring into an Excel spreadsheet, and we can actually do what-if analysis. We can say if our thresholds are 80%, what's our pass rate look like? If we push it to 90%, what's our pass rates look like? So we can do this kind of what-if and decide. But the most important thing for us is that we have a history that says, on day one, the bot was this dumb, but on day X, it's a certain amount smarter. So we can always ensure we're going that way.
Hi, I'm Zachary Green, and also from NatWest. Apologies, we have a bit of a monopoly here, and I'm NLE product owner. It'd be good to get a view of how do you gather the utterances you use for those tests. Do you sort of strive for particular variants of some type? Do you go for sort of a range of quality of utterances? What criteria do you have?
Do you know, it's a really good question. It's one of the most common problems all our customers have because they don't want to go through the effort. It's a big effort. And quite frankly, it's not the easy job. There are some tools, guys, Human First as well, who can process some of these things. But what we do is, on our early days of projects, we do data manufacturing job table read-throughs, and we get some data from that. We will sit and manually cleanse it. We'll have a good idea of what our intents are, and we'll go through a manual process. We'll then do a manual augmentation, where we're bringing in variance, natural variance, these kind of things for the model. We will also give hints to people to look at ChatGPT to generate stuff, although it still needs cleaned. And we'll do that. That allows us to get a really good baseline. However, to be quite blunt with you, when it gets up to production and we have 10,000 users a day accessing the bot, the only thing we can do that I'm involved in projects is take samples. And go, right, we take a 5% sample, and we train, and based on that, and again, go back to our tests, as long as we're getting a little bit smarter. But to be hand on heart, a lot of the data is not used. But that's because the projects I'm personally working on, we don't have that scale. But for others, like Cora, I guess, I mean, maybe you've got a whole team, I would hope, working on that. And it is, for say, with Cora, it's one of the better chatbots I've ever used, if you guys are working on that.
Good, glad to hear.
So I think the first impression is the last impression. So in case you get things wrong at first, how you... Thanks so much. So what I was trying to say that first impression is lasting impression. How you can avoid having things going wrong at first?
How do you think wrong things at first? Right, I think again it all comes down to you get the right people involved, the right use cases, the right designers involved, and some of this stuff is really well known, like basics. Your bot should give a welcoming introduction. It should give a hint on what it can do, and it should give a hint on how you have help. So those basic structures. Like I was showing you, whenever you ask a question or you put a bunch of options, give people a get-out clause. And this is as part of the introduction. We have set up in Oracle a center of excellence where we're just trying to document those basic things. I mean, it's not rocket science, but if everybody did those things, it would all be good. And when it comes to the bot failing and not getting things wrong, that's okay, as long as you have a strategy in how to best deal with that. And don't simply go, I don't know. I mean, we'll often see code where there's a single error handler, and the single error handler will say, I'm sorry, I don't know, please ask again, which is bugger all use if it's your API that's timing out, So things like saying, well, look, if it's an API timing out, say there's a problem with the back-end system and whatever, we'll deal with it. If it's a problem with NLP, say that. But again, it's just like good conversational design. It's all pretty much the basics. Thank you.
Hi. We just have one question from Nina Van Ast joining us online. They say, you've given us a lot of great tips and tricks of what to focus on, but according to you, what's the most important thing to focus on, and what can wait until after that?
The most important, oh crikey, is there only one most important thing to focus on? I think, if I'm going to say this, it's probably getting the right team, because I'm working, say, on this clinical system at the moment. It's a big project for Larry Ellison, and I have got 7 of the smartest people in Oracle who are working on it, and the difference of having those people get it, because what we're doing is we're cutting a lot of corners, and we're not following our own best practices, but we know we're not following the right best practices, and we know we need to go back and we need to fix those things, and we know where the gaps are. Having the right people with the right skills will keep you on track, even when you do cut corners like we've been doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.